Hi, I'm Chris Nedza, lead entrepreneur in residence of the Advanced Technology Development Center at Georgia Tech. We're the state of Georgia's technology incubator. Welcome to Season 1 of the ATDC podcast, Executive Bytes. We focus on the startup founders in our portfolio, what sparked them to launch their companies, the market problem they've solved, and even how they overcame the thoughts of quitting when times get rough. Enjoy. Welcome to today's episode of Executive Bytes. This is a really good group. You're going to love meeting Christy Brown, who's the CEO of Dr. Noze Bot. But before I go there, Anthony Maley is my co-host. You've seen Anthony in another episode of Executive Bytes, and he's the CEO and founder of Vouch. Super cool technology. You'll have to go check out that. Just know that he's the smartest guy in the room at the moment. There's no doubt about it.
Not so sure about that, but thank you.
I am. I'm totally sure about that. So I want to start just. So you're not actually the original founder of Dr. Noze. Can you just give us a little bit of how did you get into that seat, and give us a little bit of a background of where the idea, what the business, how it got started, and talk about Stephen and how he came up with this great idea, and just give us a little background on that.
Yeah, so it's a great story to tell. Steve and I actually met through Emory University. He has an affiliation, obviously, there is a well-known pediatric ENT in his field. So he was out raising money. We bumped into each other through mutual connections. One thing after the other, we met. But the origin story for him...
And that is Dr. Stephen Gowdy,
Dr. Stephen
right?
Gowdy, yes. He is a doctor and an MBA.
Yeah, he's a super smart guy, but I mean, his passion, and he knows, children's endocrinology.
He's an expert.
Not ENT, sorry.
Yeah. He absolutely does. But the origin story for the company really was born nearly 10 years ago at this point. Stephen, being a physician and someone who's often working with urgent situations and respiratory care for children, had a mother that was in the ER. Simply because her child couldn't breathe. And as most parents don't know, as I have found out over the years, you cannot breathe when you are born until you're about 12 months old through the mouth. So when you're congested in the nose, you have to, suck boogers. And
oh my gosh, yeah. I remember, do you remember, I don't know, I had a bunch of kids, and it was the most... scary thing. It was terrifying because you get this little kid and they'd give you that big bulbous nose sucker, snot sucker, and you're supposed to stick that thing in their nose, and because I didn't realize that infants cannot breathe through their mouth.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea.
I'm glad I didn't know that.
That's news for me.
Until they're about 1 year old, honestly. So give or take a couple months, they really are obligatory breathers until they're about a year old. So it's no wonder when parents, I like to use the mother's example, if a mother's breastfeeding and you hear the constant, it's because the child's really trying to breathe through its nose while it's eating. Or, where we really see a rise, especially right now in cold and flu season, especially flu season this year, with, nose being stopped up or what have you, the low-tech solution and the ones that hospitals typically send you home with is the bulb. And so that's what we're most commonly known for. No, we're not known for, but that's what parents commonly know.
Well, yeah, and you're not known for the bulb. You're known for the solution to that bulb. I know they sent me that thing, and I promise you, I never used it one time because I couldn't get that in their nose.
Yeah.
Like, and the nostrils are so tiny, I didn't know. So Dr. Gowdy came up with a solution.
Yeah, and he came up with the solution because we had this mom, he had this mom in the emergency room, and she said, "Hey, I like you. You're a great doctor. I love seeing you." Her newborn just happened to also have Down syndrome. And she said, "But, I don't need to be here all day, every day, just for suction." And he had that aha moment, as most innovative founders do, and said, "You know what? You're right. We can do better." It is a very low-tech area. So most everything in nasal aspiration for children is very low-tech. It's a bulb, or it's a hospital room or a physician's office where you find three key things, especially in the U.S. and most major metropolitan area hospitals are going to have air, oxygen, and water on the wall. So it's easy for us to walk in, but what about that parent solution at home? And why should you spend money and time going to a hospital just to siphon the nose? So that was Dr. Gowdy's solution, and he kind of started out on this, I call it the championship of building, the best in nasal aspiration, which I think we have today.
What's the product called? So would we, if I need to get it for, I have adult kids now, but what's it called?
Yeah, it's called the Noze Bot. Was our launch product, and it is a 3-speed electric aspirator that has hospital grade suction, and so you can find it anywhere. We just launched in Walmart stores, and
wow. The Noze Bot.
Yeah.
Wow. How did you make that work with Walmart? That's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long process. I got to tell you, they've been an incredible partner for us. The buyer is very innovative and embracing of having new high-tech solutions for children that make parents' lives better and more safe. And so really, start to finish for us being in stores was only 6 months. Wow. And we really feel like we bring a product in store that is so different than everything else on the baby shelf.
So did you already have the product developed and ready to go when you got there? Okay.
Yeah, and it's not our original Noze Bot. It's actually our Noze Bot on the go, which is a 1-speed device, really that's battery powered. That's really intended to be, the kind of nature's best friend as you're on the go. Throw it in the diaper bag, leave it at the grandparents, take it to daycare. And our other device is kind of the more powerful, higher congestion device that parents buy.
Well, yeah, you guys, not only was the product done, you guys had a pretty good following already. Yeah. You had a large market and you were able to manufacture, so it was, you guys were scaling.
Yeah, still scaling.
Which is kind of, back to the beginning of the story, how you got involved.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, they had only been in market maybe about a year when Steve knew that he needed a growth CEO really to help run the company. And, I just told you how we were connected and how we met. And it was, he actually pitched me through a forum at Emory for capital. And I was one of the judges. And a few months later, another brokered introduction happened, and they said, Christy, you might want to think about this, joining this team. Steve's awesome, and the team's awesome. The team was of 2 at that point. And it kind of took a few months, and it came together, and it's been just a joyride for the past few years.
So how many people are in the team now?
We have 10. Wow. Yeah.
So, all right, now I want to circle back a little bit around on you, because you have a really interesting background. Like, just quickly go through the 50 million things that you've done.
Yeah. I'll give the 35,000-foot version. So I am a serial entrepreneur. This is not my first soiree. It's actually my 5th company. I like to tell the story. I have founded probably 13 or 14 companies. These are the top 5, Dr. Noze Best being the 5th. I've had two big exits, one to a public company where I did an earn-out. The other was through a private equity partnership over a myriad of years. Loved doing both in that. Both of those things, learned not just building great sales teams and teams in general and culture, but also, once you sell, it's not yours anymore. And so I'm less passionate about the sell. I'm much more passionate about the growth. I like to get us to where we're going and then think about what's next. I also created an accelerator for female founders, or helped operationalize that accelerator over the past decade. Also was able to create a venture fund here in Atlanta alongside of a partner out of New York. Gosh, it's been almost 5 or 6 years ago that we did that. So I've been on the founder seat, I've been in the investor seat. I still have active angel investments that I cherish, really targeted at women and underserved founders. And that's my history, not that rich.
So why did, so I don't know, Anthony, are you wondering, how did you go from that? What intrigued you to join a a snot sucker machine company?
Yeah, probably the top 3 things when I get asked this. Number one is it's an attractive business. It focuses, our predominant audience is the mom. I mean, I just shared with you my history as a female founder, as a real arbitrator and pusher for women-owned businesses. And this aims, demographically at a segment of the population I'm very familiar with, both as a parent and also as a female. So that was an easy thing to think about. The second piece was the expertise that we have in the company. The fact that Steve is a well-known physician, and that helps drive our brand, but it's also the trust that we establish with the parents and the community around what we are building. And we're very serious about that. We're not trying to do high volume, multi-manufactured products, arriving out of China. We actually thoughtfully here on premise at ATDC and Georgia Tech create our products, revolutionize them, engineer them, test them, incubate them before we ever go to market. So, that's kind of the special stuff for me.
So the thing about Dr. Gowdy is, yes, he's well known as a pediatric endocrinologist, ENT. I have kids with diabetes, so I'm used to endocrinology,
I get it.
Right? So, but he's a pediatric ENT doctor, and he has that passion. And he's hardworking, and he's doing all that. How hard was it for him to turn over the reins? And I know him; he's an amazing, dear person. But what was that like? Did he say, "Here you go, I trust you"? Or
pretty much from day one, Steve has been, probably my biggest fan and champion.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we don't debate things, and we should. I mean, that's what good founders should do. And in a lot of ways, I coach him even much as he would coach me in the medical world, right? Because I've done this and I've seen so much top to bottom through other companies, not just of my own, but other founders that I've worked with, hundreds of founders over the years, both in mentor and venture. And so it's just a collaborative relationship. He's, when something great happens, we're jumping up and down. When, we know something's coming towards us, we're right in it, in many ways together. But he being an inventor, this is not the only thing that he's focused on or working on. He really wants to make we, I should say, as an organization, really are also trying to make an imprint on the world. So for every product we sell, we actually allocate a percentage to the National Down Syndrome Congress. So we are very mission-based as well. It's where we started, right, from our origin story with that baby who was in the ER that had Down syndrome. And for most of those that aren't aware, why that's important is in a Down syndrome child or adult, they have different bone structure, and so their breathing is quite different. And so that's just an audience that we cherish and aim towards. And so we want to make a difference. And so most of the products that Steve's involved in, we're looking to really change something, rather than using the cliche term disrupt, we're really modifying and elevating what wellness should be at home for parents.
Yeah, but it also sounds like you have a skill that he doesn't, right? So you clearly have a talent for building high performance teams that scale. That
true,
right?
Yeah,
that's what
agreed.
You do. He's an inventor. That's not what he does. So it sounds like that's a kind of match made in heaven, right?
Yeah, in many ways it is. And it's also, I'm also not caught up in the, what could be the bureaucracy of the day-to-day, medical life. Look at what's around us in this environment today. Medical's being throttled down rather than throttled up. Patient care has changed since the pandemic. And so it's a very difficult bureaucratic environment. I don't live and breathe that way. So usually I'm moving at a much more rapid pace and kind of communicating over, hey, we got to move, this fast instead of this fast.
So what's your secret for growing those teams?
Yeah, gosh, there's a lot of methodology. I don't think ever will I be able to say I've got it perfect. I feel like I learn from others as much as I build those teams. And we've had some churn. We've made bad decisions as we do in early stage companies. But one, culture, belief, giving really great autonomy to them, making sure that who we hire is pre-calibrated. We use a lot of things on the front end to test and learn if this employee that we're seeing on the CV really matches up to what our needs are. Do we know exactly what our needs are?
Right.
I also, it's an unfortunate circumstance, but we have to be really slow to hire, but also quick to fire.
Yeah.
And it's a favor to the employee and us if we get it wrong. And so I think in high performing teams, I'm looking for those athletes. I'm looking for those distance runners that are going the distance with us, and we have that today.
Do you have characteristics in your mind that you look for? I figured you would. That's a loaded question. What are those characteristics that you look for?
Yeah. I mean, I was a pro athlete, at times where I was doing long distance triathlons. I'm still a runner. I compete. I look for that mentality. Like, the race is never won. We're always chasing. But I think when I look for an athlete characteristic, I'm also looking for those folks who they're going to lead themselves. Those are the folks that are, either in team sports or, on their own, that are competing, not just to compete, although that's the fun part too. It's also this mentality that you got to be better and stronger, and you got to work towards something. And so I really, I'm a big believer in, let's look for who's been aligned to sports teams and athletes, athletics. And
so what's the other secret sauce? Because I know a lot of swimmers and athletes, and not all of them would be good on the team. What are the other elements or the ingredients that you look for?
Yeah, I think the ability to slow down and speed up. So slow down to speed up, I should say. We sometimes have to zoom out or zoom up to 35,000 feet to really see what's happening across the board. And I think that's not just a strategic asset to have in an employee. It's one that you can test ahead of hiring. We use I said we use a couple different things. I'm a big believer in Berkman assessments, and also we use Culture Index. So we require anyone that interviews in the organization, when they're on a second interview, we go through these assessments at our charge. We pay for it because we want to know ahead of schedule what characteristics that I might recognize and what might be missing. Are they offensive players or defensive players? And that's how we really look at the organization overall. If I've got an entire board of defensive players and I'm the only offensive, that's an imbalance. And so being able to see that and zooming up and, like I said, broadening the glance helps us a lot. Because we are a manufacturing and product company, you can imagine the engineers and technical resources. Right. And so we do tend to, lean heavily on those defensive versus offensive players. And so we have to balance that out because there's a lot that goes on. We're largely a direct-to-consumer company. We're largely a retail company. But at the end of the day, we're a consumer product company. And so that requires a huge ability to navigate, what is consumer goods and that creative thinking that our engineers just don't have.
Okay, change gears a little bit. Have you ever wanted to quit? And
many times.
And what keeps you, go through that, take us to that moment or those moments, and then what are you thinking, and then what are you thinking to get yourself out of that?
Yeah. So we've had a couple of incidences that have just with Dr. Noze Bot in general, where I've wanted to quit. Some are just, the competitive landscape is hard, or you can't get a buyer inside a retail store to understand where you sit on the roadmap, because we've got some first mover advantage stuff going on. We may not be the first aspirator, but we are certainly the premier aspirator. Right. Getting people to understand your products, getting teams to move as fast as I want to move. There's lots of things. Money, raising money. Bringing in money, making sure our profitability is where we want it to be, looking at numbers, all those things make me want to quit. I'd love to show up every day and just go sell snot suckers. That would be the most fun. Right. But there is the overall challenge that this is a business and a business to scale, and we know where we want to get to, and so it takes a lot. There's also the random, I would think, if we really got into the personal pieces of that as a founder, there's the risk of failure. There's the things that go through your mind of, am I good enough, fast enough? Am I going to move it to where it needs to be? I certainly have a different challenge not being the founder of this company, because I have founded all my other companies of, even though we're partners, it's still...
Yeah, it is different though when you're the founder and you don't have a choice. You can lose your house. You could go get another job, but you've been on both sides of it. Is it different? Is it really different, or is it
not really? I still have money in the company. I'm still an investor. It's not different.
Okay.
My name is not signed, on the loan document, so to speak. And so it's the first time, but I still feel the same way. Like when I show up every day, it's still Christy Brown Incorporated. I coach my team to think like that. Like when you show up here, it is whoever incorporated. What you do here is your business, no matter here or wherever you go.
That's a great point. I mean, in my team, I try and prepare them for the tough times, right? Because usually when you feel things aren't happening, that's when a breakthrough actually comes. If you hang in there through that tough phase, something great usually comes out of it, we've found. And I try and coach my teams, but how do you deal with that, given your background of growing successful companies? Do you also do that?
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to, I also lived and breathed right in the middle of the dot bomb, right? So from 2001 to 3, there was this really rocky place. It was also when I had the advantage to start my first company, because I lived out of the largest bankruptcy, and then, was associated with another fraudulent firm because I moved out of the largest bankruptcy. So I knew, entrepreneurship was on the horizon. I didn't want a company that reflected any of those attributes. So to keep me motivated, it was always, I don't want to be one of those companies that get marched out by the, FBI with documents and boxes.
That would not be a good day.
I got to get numbers here, and I got to make sure I'm building better. I even have looked at programs to keep them motivated in the past of, not just employee stock programs, but how can you own this company eventually? Things I've looked at. But I also have to say, when we talk specifically about keeping them motivated, if they've got a founder heart, and what I mean by that is if they do show up every day and it's Christy Brown Incorporated and that's their mentality, they take it personally what happens inside. And so there's no dismissive of I didn't or I can't. And it's more, how do I and what do you need? And, if we can reflect the varsity, and just, what do you have? I would love that tone every day to walk in and go, what do you have?
Yeah.
Just because that's how we could support each other. And we do a lot. People are shocked to hear the size of my team because we do so much.
I know a few of your teammates, they are rock stars.
And we continue to build that. This year I hired my first chief commercial officer, and boy, what a difference, right? So that's going to be a game changer, and having those resources and really having them tell me what's needed or what's missing.
Well, I'll tell you what, I love your story. I love what Dr. Noze does. Dr. Gowdy's amazing, and I just love your passion for what you do, and you are an athlete for sure. And Anthony, love your company and love you being on my co-host today. So thank you, Christy, for joining us. I want the whole world to go out, if they have kids or grandkids, go get your product.
Absolutely agree. Shameless plug. It is the best aspirator on the market.
I wish I would have had it. So anyway, thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
And until next time. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the ATDC podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, and share or connect wherever you get your podcasts. Please be sure to follow us on social media. Our handle is @ATDC on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram.